I read somewhere that I might have Celtic feet. That means there's an off chance that my ancestors, about 2,500 years ago, would have come across that far hill in the search of a new land. Like all immigrants, they were hoping for a better life. And this land is a massive land of opportunity. But when they arrived 2,500 years ago, the land looked very different from the way it does today. Most of England was covered with forests. It had wolves, it had lynxes. Most dangerous of all, it had people who were already there, people who already didn't like the idea of their land being invaded by immigrants. Possibly a message for our time. About 2,500 years ago then, a group of people that we call the Celts arrived on the south coast, round about the area of Lyme Regis, and they made their way inland via a geological fold in the countryside that we latterly called the Greater Ridgeway Trail. I'm actually sitting on the mound of West Kennet Long Barrow, a 5,500 year old barrow in Wiltshire. My imagined ancestors, when they made their way inland, if indeed they did, would have found something here that was already 3,000 years old, already older than our calendar is by quite a long stretch. What we're going to do today is we're going to start off at West Kennet Long Barrow. We're going to walk to Silbury Hill across the road, about half a mile away. Then we're going to walk up to the ancient village of Avebury and have a look at the stone circles. This story has an alternative beginning, and that beginning is in Avebury. What I'm going to do is take pictures along the way in breaks in the clouds, although I think the world is beautiful and the weather is perfectly suited for my Celtic feet. I will take some pictures and they will be in a gallery at the end of the video. This is as far as you can get inside the barrow now. Very, very moody. Very, very atmospheric. So if this works over the wind, the actual start of the ridgeway is about a mile in the direction the camera is pointed at the moment. What we're going to do is walk down the hill, down the path, and we're going to cross the road and go to Silbury Hill. Here we have what's becoming my signature shot of me following Rachel down the path. We've walked about a mile to Silbury Hill. This is literally the biggest molehill ever constructed. About 40,000 moles worked for 15 centuries to construct this. We've walked about a mile to Silbury Hill. This is one of the largest Neolithic landmarks in the whole of Europe. It's about 160 metres wide, it's 30 metres tall. It there's approximately 400,000 cubic meters of earth in it. So if each one of those cubic meters was actually a cubic meter, it would stretch all the way from here in Silbury to the moon. Clearly, over 5,000 years there's been some erosion. You're not allowed to walk on it anymore, which personally I find is a great pity, but I understand why. And we can only imagine why it was built. One theory that probably isn't true, but I like, is that when people visited this area, they brought a quantity of earth from their home. There's no evidence to support that whatsoever, but I like the idea. If everyone brought, say, 10 kilos, it would take about 4 million visits to this site to actually build this hill. So, leaving Silbury Hill, we're going to head up the footpath here, which we've never been on before, to actually see if it actually takes us to Avebury as promised. Looking down on top of Silbury Hill, panning across to the distance. This tree has been learning the art of macrame for nearly 100 years. Unfortunately, it still hasn't really got it right. It's resorted simply to tying small pieces of cloth about itself as if it were some sort of ancient pagan fertility symbol. When we first came here, it must be nearly 30 years ago, I felt immediately at home. I'd never been to this part of the English countryside, but everything just looked right. Well, with one exception. And I think that's because when I was at school, this is what we were taught the English countryside looked like. A patchwork of fields, interconnected by hedges, probably less cars. The one exception, of course, was I didn't expect to see loads and loads of rocks in the ground. This is the end of the avenue, and over the far hill is the village of Avebury. The sarsen stones are very impressive. Perhaps not as impressive in size as Stonehenge, but the site is massive and everyone has access to it. These little concrete posts here were put to signify where stones should be. The stones themselves must have been repurposed for some reason, but someone has actually taken the trouble to put in tiny little markers to show where the stones should have been. I'm never sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing that a road literally runs through the middle of this amazing Neolithic site. On one hand, I think it's a bad thing because it's destroyed part of this area. On the other hand, it shows a certain relaxedness about our relationship with the land. Maybe that's a good thing. I have no idea why, but this stone appears to be in a prison. Perhaps they'll let it out for Christmas. Avebury is one of the few places in the world where you can actually see people hugging rocks. I'm not sure what the people get out of it, but I'm pretty sure the rocks don't get a lot out of it. Nearly 30 years ago, we were standing on this ridge. My partner was heavily pregnant and the wind was absolutely bitter. It did not look anything like today. This strip of land in front of us is the key to the bridgeway. The geological holes that created the pathway has forced chalk near the surface. That chalk makes it really difficult for many large trees to thrive and is easily cleared away by us humans. After a very short period of time, topsoil wears through and it leaves the chalk path that we now know as the Ridgeway Trail. We are literally walking the chalk. I'm now sheltering from the winds at the church in Avebury. When I started out on this at West Kennet Long Barrow, I said there were two beginnings to this story. The first one was the story of my Celtic feet. The second one was a book. I started to be interested in photography about 1975, and at that time I was given a book which I was told was a book about photography. It turned out that it wasn't. It turned out that it was a walker's guide, and it was a walker's guide to the Ridgeway. I didn't know where the Ridgeway was. I'd never heard of the Ridgeway, but I did like the photographs, particularly the photographs of Avebury. And the photograph that I liked the best is on page 35 of this book. This photograph is in so many ways shaped my photographic journey. This was the photograph that I aspired to take. This was the photograph I needed to find. This was the place that I needed to go to. This photograph was taken by the fantastic landscape photographer Faye Godwin. And Faye Godwin's work has also greatly shaped my photographic journey. Here I am today, and here's my pictures of the same stone that Godwin took nearly 50 years ago. No, wait. Alternative ending. This is actually the beginning of the Ridgeway. This is the sanctuary, and it is the start of the actual Ridgeway Trail. And here it is, the beginning of the Ridgeway.